And I want you to give it that. I'm a winner. Now let me hear you practice. And the kid, you know, I said, no, a little bit more, a little bit more. And I said, your mom and dad will be telling you this and reminding you of this every day. Never will I forget an experience when we went out to Utah, where I spoke recently. And I did that with one of the youngsters. And we were riding up in the chairs, you know, that take you up to the top of the mountains. It wasn't snow season, but that's what we were doing. And this youngster coming down met us, and he said, hey, Zig, I'm a winner. I said, that's exactly right. Did that to a child in Atlanta. And a couple of months later, I was back over there. My goddaughter was with me that day. And some lady was talking to her, and the lady said it was almost as if Zig could see into his soul. It was the mother of this little boy. He wrote me a letter. He's in about the 2nd grade. And he said, you know, I am a winner. The mother was telling my goddaughter that it meant so much because his father had abused him considerably. Change that picture, the image he had of himself. When we encourage people, when we refer to them as what they are, born to win, when we let them know they were created in God's image and the love He has for them, nothing elevates that child up as much as knowing that.
The subject of loyalty. You know, in an organization, the key to doing any great thing is people committing and working together in unity. Mm-hmm. How's loyalty encouraged and talked about and nurtured in an organization?
Well, first of all, it's demonstrated. If we are loyal, and you know, President Bush puts great stock in loyalty, when we demonstrate our loyalty to our people, and that should be reasonably easy to do because the way we treat our direct employees, our direct customers more properly, has a huge impact on the way they will treat their customers. And if we treat them with kindness and consideration and we encourage them, they're inclined to do exactly the same thing. One of the things that in sales training we've emphasized is that the sale is not complete until the order is signed, the merchandise, goods, or services delivered and paid for, and the customer is satisfied. Now, the Forum Corporation out of Boston, Massachusetts, did a study on 341 salespeople in several different companies. 173 of them were super successful. 168 were successful, but not super successful. And as they reviewed all of the records, they discovered that those who were super successful, number one, understood that for the entire sales process to be completed, they had to have the services of the shipping department, the collection department, the finance department, the training department. And so when they called in or came into the home office, they were just as kind to the shipping clerk and the collection clerk and everybody else as they were to the CEOs, because they realized all of them were involved in that process. In addition to that, they did absolutely everything with integrity, and that always come back. But those two things, treating each person with courtesy and respect, was what made the huge difference, along with the integrity they used in doing it.
Well, all of us have every day in our lives people that come to us for one reason or another that are broke or broken or perhaps both, and we're able to help them and give them hope. Talk to me about the quality of hope.
Hope. Well, Alfred Adler says that hope is the foundational quality of all change. If there's no hope, there's no action. The youngster who does not think he or she can pass won't bother to study. I mean, why waste my time? The salesperson with no hope of making the sale won't make the call. I mean, you know, what's the use? The couple whose marriage is in trouble won't get counseling because, I mean, there's no hope. But when hope is born, action follows. Dr. John Maxwell says if there's hope in the future, there's power in the present. Dr. Tony Campola says this: your past is important, because it brought you to where you are. But as important as your past is, it is not nearly as important as the way you see your future. Because the way you see your future determines your thinking today. Your thinking today determines your performance today. Your performance today determines your future. HOPE, the acronym, is helping other people excel. That's where hope is born, and that turns to joy after a period of time when you see others succeeding because you have given them that encouragement and that hope.
As an individual, as your confidence and passion builds, is hope something you can kind of put on the side burner or back burner because your confidence is there and your passion is there, and you don't have the feelings of there's no hope anymore?
I don't think you ever put it on the side. Now, you might not have put the same thought process in it, but over a period of time it becomes your personality. That's the way you are. When people say to me, and I frequently use this as a little example, when I greet people, whether it's 9 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock at night, whether I'm in Auckland, New Zealand, or whether I'm in Augusta, Maine, I always greet them, good morning. And at 9 o'clock at night, by actual count, 85% of the people either respond to good morning or they start to say good morning. And then they say, it's not morning. I said, then how come you to say good morning? They said, because you said good morning. I said, makes a great point. You go out in life looking for friends, they'll be scarce. You go out in life to be a friend, you will find them everywhere. Because what you send out is exactly what you get back. When you give hope, you will get hope. Encourage others, you'll be encouraged. You really can have everything in life you want if you will just help enough other people get what they want.
You know, Zig, I think if there was a word that described you, that optimistic would be one of those words.
Yes, and I claim that moniker or whatever with great enthusiasm and considerable greatness. As you know, I tell people I'm so optimistic that I still just put a dime in the parking meter while my wife goes shopping. And since she's been inducted into the MasterCard Hall of Fame, that is a sure sign of optimism. Optimism, as you know, is identified in the 1828 Noah Webster Dictionary. The word pessimism is not identified in it, or pessimist is not there. It's kind of a modern invention. But people with an upbeat, optimistic, enthusiastic attitude win friends more easily. Nobody wants to be around somebody who's, just really down on everything and critical of everything. And as you know, some people are so narrow-minded they can look through a keyhole with both eyes at the same time. And, they're so cynical that they still think somebody pushed Humpty Dumpty. Well, these are not the kind of people that win friends and influence people. That expectancy, that optimism, they expect good things to happen, makes such a huge difference. I can speak as a parent, as an educator, as a manager, and as a trainer, that your expectancies creates the optimism in the people. And when you're optimistically expectant, then you're going to get considerably better results in each of the areas of life in which we are a part. Optimism at home, optimism on the job, optimism even in traffic, which is incidentally one of the reasons I talk so much about Automobile University. You fuel that optimism with good inspirational information as you go back and forth to your job and then back to home. And when you're optimistic, it's catching. It really is catching.
You know, like so many of these other qualities we're looking at, it's a choice. I remember hearing you say that some people look for fault as if there were a reward. And yet we ought to be looking, particularly as Americans, for the so many things that we have to be optimistic about.
Yeah, for sure. And let me share with you one of my favorite stories about the fact that, yes, you can be negative and yet be changed radically with certain processes. Years ago, I spoke in Birmingham, Alabama, and I'd agreed to meet with the lady who had called in and said she hated her job, hated the people there, and hated everything about it. Well, Laurie Majors told her that I would speak with her when I got there. As it worked out, she got there about 10 minutes before I was to start speaking. She was on one side of backstage, I was on the other side, and as she walked across and saw me, she almost started crying. Oh, I'm just so glad to see you. I got this terrible job. I just hate it. I hate it. I hate it. And the people down there, she's the kind of person that can brighten up a whole room by leaving it. And her question was, can you help me? And I said, ma'am, I can. I've got a process that if you'll follow, I can guarantee you'll get results. She said, I'll try anything within reason. I said, okay. When you get home tonight, last thing you do just before you go to bed, I want you to get a sheet of paper and write down on it, I like my job because. She said, that'll be easy. I don't like nothing about that job. Don't like nothing about the people down there. And I said, well, just as a matter of curiosity, do they pay you for working there? She said, well, of course they pay me for working there. And I said, and you don't like to be paid? She said, yes, I do, too. I said, well, now, 30 seconds ago, there wasn't nothing you liked about the job. Now we've already found one thing. Maybe we can find something else. Let's try. Before we got through, there were 22 things she liked about a job. Number one, they not only paid her, they paid her above average. She had life insurance, health insurance, and hospitalization insurance. She had a 2-week vacation with pay. She lived less than 10 minutes from home. She was in on management decisions, had a good retirement program, on and on and on. And as I looked at it, I said, now, ma'am, what I want you to do is this. When you get home at night, I want you tonight, get right in front of the mirror, look yourself in the eye and say, I love my job because they pay me well. I love my job because of the insurance. I love my job. I love my job. I love my job. And every time you say, I love my job, you're really saying, I'm grateful for my job. Gratitude is the healthiest of all human emotions. Now, you see, the woman had come to me expecting me to solve her problem. See, I can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that. But you can give them, and we can give them methods and processes which, if they will do, they accept responsibility. There we go with that word again, for doing something for themselves. And she had come there expecting me to solve her problem. I gave her something far more valuable. That was, how can you solve the problem? Well, I told her, do this every morning, and tomorrow morning when you get up, and every night, you'll discover that you had a different kind of dream. It was a positive dream. Take the list with you, because you will have discovered in just 24 hours that you now are looking for positive things. You'll add to this tomorrow morning. And as you add to the list, change will take place. Over and over, you say this morning and night. And if you'll do it for 30 days, you will see a significant change in your life. 6 weeks later, I was back in Birmingham doing a follow-up sales seminar. And though she was not in sales, per se, she had been listening in Automobile University and had learned that everybody's in sales. And so there she sat on the front row, grinning so wide she could have eaten a banana sideways. I mean, she was really grinning. I said, well, ma'am, how you doing? She said, wonderfully well, Mr. Ziegler. She said, you can't believe how much those people down there have changed. Well, of course, they hadn't changed, but she had. See, we're not going to change anybody until we change ourselves. But let me emphasize a point. It wasn't her fault altogether that she was that way. She was raised with parents who were constantly criticizing her, comparing her to her brother, who was so wonderful. Then she married a man, and guess what? Same kind of man. He, too, was a fault finder. But here's what's fascinating. There's no such thing as a single fault or a single good habit or a single bad habit. All of them have got buddies. When she took the approach she did on her job, then she started reevaluating her parents. And she started looking for the positive there. They had provided her with a good education. They had provided her with a secure home, provided food, shelter, caring. I mean, to the best of their knowledge that they had. And so she started looking at that, and her relationship with them changed dramatically. Same story with her husband. Same story in the church and in the community. When you change your attitude and change your thought processes, it affects every facet of your life. That's where responsibility to continue to grow and learn is so important to all of us. There is change. She accepted responsibility for doing something and did it.
What immediately comes to your mind when I say the two words self-starter?
Oh, boy. I've been so fortunate in the vast majority of my life. I've always had something to do. And the bottom line is procrastination creates a lot of stress. If you know you got to do something, if you know you're going to do it, the longer you wait to get started, the more the task grows in size. And so a self-starter, I think about when you make the decision, this is what I'm going to do, you take action. You go ahead and do it. When I get up in the morning, I get up in action. I really get things started in a good way. And because I do that, I'm able to get a lot of things done that I otherwise would not. You got to start. One of my favorite stories is when I was a child in Yazoo City, Mississippi. We lived next door to some rich folks. I know they were rich because the cook had something to cook. This is the heart of the Depression. And I was over there for lunch one day, as I tried to be every day. And even though we had plenty to eat at our house, I know we had plenty because if I passed my plate for seconds, they'd always tell me, no, you've had plenty. Well, anyhow, one day I was over there and the cook brought the biscuits out. And they were literally no thicker than my wristwatch. And I said, Maud, what on earth happened to your biscuits? And she laughed, that big laugh, you know, reared her head back and said, well, let me tell you about those biscuits. She said they squatted to rise, but they just got cooked in the squat. People who wait to do anything get cooked in the squat. They always have excuses. Yeah, I'm glad you told me about that. I'm going to get involved. But, you know, right now things are so busy around here. Wait a couple of months. Wait till school gets started again. The kids are on vacation right now, and there's so much going on. Wait till school gets started. Well, school starts, they say, well, you know, the kids are in athletics, and we got to support them. You do that for a while, then come the Christmas season. Well, you know, everybody's doing holidays now. Then you get through that. Then they come to the first part of the year, and they say, well, you know, the weather is so bad. And then after a couple of months of that, then they say, well, you know, you can't be working all the time. You got to take some time for yourself. So let me have a little fishing and a little golf, and then I'll get busy. Well, let me tell you something. The people who wait for the weather to change, for Uncle Charlie to move out, for the government to change some of their policies, to the advertisement program gets started, people who wait for things to change out there before they change in here will always end up getting cooked in the squat. Do it now, and you'll get it done. Otherwise, it will be undone.
You know, Zig, consistency is important on a lot of different levels. For one, it would demonstrate the reliability and dependability, you know, and the power of good habits. Explain how consistency is important in our relationships.
One of the things that creates a lot of stress is the husband or the wife who says, I'll be home by 7 o'clock, and at 7:30 they still haven't arrived, nor have they even called them. I well remember a gentleman from Birmingham, Alabama, who was consistently late. And the story has such a beautiful message in it. I want to share that with you in response to what you're asking. He came to one of the seminars in Montgomery, Alabama. And then when I did the same seminar in Birmingham 3 years later, he was there. And he said, you know, when I was there in Montgomery, you talked about all of these qualities of success and so forth, and you didn't put those self-taught cards in your tapes then, so I just made my own, and he showed it to me. And he said every morning and every night before I went to bed and when I got up, I would go down this list. And he said, the results have been spectacular. And I said, well, like what? He said, well, my income's up over 500%. But he said, and 300% of that was in the last year alone. Now, the man was in real estate. This was 1992. 1990, when I was in Montgomery, the real estate market was horrible in 1990, 1991, and 1992. And I said, well, how do you account for that? And he said, well, the fascinating thing is when I went down this list, I was doing really, really well until I got to the self-taught that said, and I am always prompt. He said, Mr. Ziegler, I've never been on time for anything in my life. Late for school more times than any kid that ever graduated from high school in Montgomery. Late for breakfast, lunch, dinner, golf games, clothes, late for everything. And he said, when I got down that list and said, I'm always prompt, he said, it was so ridiculous and so hilarious, he said, I broke out laughing. This happened the first time I did this. And he said, when I started laughing, then I said, now, why am I always late? And he said, you know, the answer was I counted on being late. I planned on being late. Then I asked myself, well, why did I plan on being late? And he said, I didn't like the answer. It was because I was arrogant, vain, self-centered, irresponsible, every negative word you can think about. What I was really saying to the people that I always had waiting for me is, look, I'm too important to take a chance on being there on time because you might not be. Your time is not important because you're not important. So if I finally show up, just be grateful that I did. And he said, when I realized how arrogant that was, I made a commitment to myself. I would never again be late for anything. And Mr. Ziegler, in 3 years' time, I have not been late for anything. Nothing. Closings, I was there. My wife said dinner will be ready at 7, I was there. My son's baseball game starts at 7 o'clock. I was going to be there. If I said I was going to be there. And it's amazing, as much as I enjoyed the increase in income, my relationship with my wife, with my son, with my staff is infinitely more valuable. This self-talk concept, this claiming these qualities makes such a huge difference. But let me say it again. This was the decision he made when he went through it one time, the first time. So his dependability now, his consistency is so much better that every facet of his life has changed.
You know, there's a power with consistency, maybe even a magic behind it, where if you desire something, a behavior, you know, at first you have to force yourself to do it. Exercise comes to mind. But a consistent application of that behavior, in fact, they've found that in 30 days you can form either a good habit or a bad habit. But the consistency was the key. You know, millions of women use our exercise program because they endured the discomfort of those first few weeks until they had transformed themselves through consistency to acquire the habit of exercise. And looking at it that way, the habits that are desirable that we've been talking about today, consistency would certainly be one of the keys to making them your own. Wouldn't you agree?
There's no question about that. And one of the interesting things, you know, the Bible speaks of little things, you know, a little sleep, a little slumber, a little wine, and so forth, and then you have a disaster waiting to happen down the road. Well, the reality is that bad habits sometimes can be acquired instantaneously. Like, for example, if you go to the casino, your first gambling venture, and win, you have just really laid the foundation for disaster in front of you because it can become very addictive almost immediately. Same is true of cocaine. It can become addictive almost instantly. Now, good habits, on the other hand, in order for you to really develop them, you've got to grab them with firmness and then hold on for dear life because it's going to take that discipline in order for you to be consistent. One of the little stories is, many people know, for over 24 years of my adult life, by choice, I weighed well over 200 pounds. I say by choice because I've never accidentally eaten anything. I mean, it's always been choice. And if I ate too much, I weighed too much. Then I got on a sensible eating and exercise program. Up until then, my idea of exercise was to fill the tub, take a bath, pull the plug, and fight the current. Now, that was not a whole lot of exercise. But when I started that, the first day I started jogging, I weighed well over 200 pounds. I was able to run a block. And I mean, literally, it was a long block, but one